do want to try. We're not going to get all these sonnets by Shakespeare done today, but I think we can knock out. We might be able to get 6 of these done, and then we'll just go on to Johnson. I still need to. I don't think I have yet. I need to send you a link to a kind of a background introductory lecture to the Renaissance and 17th century. I'll do that later today. Okay, so we've done Sonnet 20. Today what I want to try to do is I want to try to do 30, 73, 106, 116, and 130, and then we'll be done with Shakespeare's sonnets. And the reason I've chosen these 6 plus, or these 5 plus 20 is these are among my favorite of Shakespeare's sonnets. Ideally, sometime I will offer my 4900 special topics course, which is just the sonnets. Last time I tried to, it got canceled like 3 months before the semester began because only 4 students had registered as of June. Go figure. Okay, so Sonnet 30. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow, for precious friends hid in death's dateless night, and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell o'er the sad account of fore bemoaned moan, which I knew pay, as if not paid before. This is on page 888. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end. Okay? Let's take that apart. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought. Now, your gloss there tells you sessions means judicial sittings. Yes, very narrow literal meaning, that is what that is. Okay? It also refers to, a little more broadly, a connotation of that is just when you're just sitting down by yourself and kind of ruminating on your past, thinking about your personal history. So, when to the sessions of sweet silent thought, I summon up Proust's title, Remembrance of Things Past. Okay? I notice, summon up. Summon, it's like a conjuring term. I bring up what? What has happened in the past. I sigh, present tense. One of the things to notice in this sonnet is how Shakespeare, author, not persona of the poem, but how Shakespeare, the author, plays with verb tenses. We're going to move back and forward in time. Okay? I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought. I sigh when? Now, when I'm sitting, remembering the past. I sigh now, what? Over things that in the past I sought, I looked for. And with old woes, new wail my dear time's waste. New wail. Newly. I presently wail over what? How precious time is wasted now. Now. Is he talking about wasting time now, seeking new things, and that's why he brings to mind the old things sought? He's comparing, I wasted my time back when I was young, going after this frivolous thing, and you're doing the same thing now? In other words, learn, stupid. Could be. Then, when I do these things, then can I drown an eye unused to flow. When I do these things, then what happens? The tears start to flow. But notice, normally the tears don't flow. Normally, the speaker is not given to tears. Then can I drown an eye? Why? For precious friends hid in death's dateless night. Now, presently, I cry for what? My long dead friends. And I think the unused to flow is not just saying, when I don't think about my long dead friends, I don't normally cry. I think the speaker is saying, then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hid in death's dateless night? When they died, the speaker didn't mourn their deaths. The speaker didn't cry over their deaths. But now, thinking back, the speaker can. And weep afresh love's long since canceled woe. Now, probably everybody in this room has experienced love's long since canceled woe. An old lover, an old boyfriend, an old girlfriend. And what's the speaker doing? Weeping now over what? That broken relationship. Even though the speaker, we could for a moment assume the speaker is in a relationship. Well, the speaker is in a relationship of sorts, right? Because if the while I think on thee, dear friend, everything else is canceled out. Okay? But the speaker's not probably in a romantic relationship, unless it's the dark lady that's going to get referred to later. So, I weep afresh love's long since canceled woe. I think now about those long dead affairs, not that the other person is dead, but the affair is dead, so to speak, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight. The expense, the cost. Your gloss tells you the loss of many a vanished sight. Moans now. Okay? Then, again, when I do these things, then can I grieve at grievances foregone. Grievances foregone. Grievances past. Grievances over. What kind of grievances? Well, maybe the kind of grievances that cause relationships to break up. Probably everybody in this room, I'm going to assume, once had really close friends with whom you are no longer really close. And if you take a session of sweet, silent thought to summon up those remembrances, what can it do? It makes you miss that friendship. Okay? Then can I grieve at grievances foregone? What were the grievances? We're not told. But I bet, I won't say this about you, I could surely say some of my past broken friendships were broken because of stupid, little, tiny things. And that's the grievances, and grievances foregone. What an ass, I was to allow that friendship to dissolve because of X, Y, or Z. And heavily from woe to woe tell over. In the sweet sessions of silent thought, he does what? The speaker does what? Tells. Like a bank teller. You go to a bank teller and the bank teller doesn't tell you out your money, right? They count it out. That's what tell means here. Does what? Counts out these woes. Going through them. The sad account of fore bemoaned moan. The sad account. The reckoning of what? Fore bemoaned. Things that I have moaned for, cried for before, and reliving now. Which, if I knew pay, which I knew pay, as if not paid before. What? I moan about them now, as if I didn't. In other words, all those events that we think are in the past, what? They're not in our past. Where are they?
They're here.
Where? In our mind? Where else? Okay? I had a marker. I was talking to my priest the other day about something with a member of my family. And, he used one analogy, I used a different one. I kind of like his analogy better. He said, we're all like this. We're like the rings of a tree. All those events of our past, those are rings. Well, what happens as you age? You put more rings on, right? Those rings don't disappear. William Wordsworth writes, and I can't remember which poem, the child is father of the man. Yeah. We tend to think it's the other way. The man as child is father of the child. Right? Because biologically that's how it works. But every person, the daughter, the child is the mother of the daughter too. Why? Because you ladies in here, you're still that 6-year-old little girl. Where? Just buried deep inside. And us guys, we're still those 6-year-old little boys. It's just buried deep inside. That's part of what he's getting at. I think back, if you go all the way back, to all those experiences, and he knew pays the sorrows as if not paid before. But, and this is what Shakespeare is the master of, the concluding couplet. But, big turn. If the while, what's the while? During these sessions of sweet silent thought, if the while I think on thee, dear friend, if while going over all of these, remembrance of things past, I think of you, all losses are restored and sorrows end. Why?
Because it feels like it did when you were friends with that person.
Okay. Is the speaker saying or suggesting that dear friend is one of the past friendships? Because notice, if the while I not thought, think, present tense, all losses are restored. There's a Renaissance idea, and Shakespeare really loves this, as does John Donne, that we'll see a little bit, that friendships or people can all be subsumed under one person. Okay? Shakespeare has a sonnet, I don't think it's going to be one we're going to end up doing, where the speaker essentially says, we've been away for a while. You've been away for a while. And while you've been away, I've played. And all the time that I have played, Julie, Ann, Mary, Samantha, Christy, all these different women, they've all been what? Now, you could say, this is really crass. I mean, this is typical guy talk, Oh, no, I wasn't cheating on you. They were all images of you. Yeah, try that, That'll get you real far. It'll get you a slug between the eyeballs, probably. Okay? But that's essentially kind of what he's saying here. All lost friendships, all past woes are what? When I think of our friendship, they're gone. It's like you cancel them all out. Jump to 73. And there are so many here I would just love to be doing. Maybe if we have time, we'll come back. But probably won't. 73. Oh, man. Look at 71 briefly. No longer mourn for me when I am dead, then you shall hear the surly sullen bell. Give warning to the world that I am fled from this vile world, with vilest worms to dwell. Notice the punctuation in that opening quatrain. You don't get any mark of punctuation until the fourth line. Shakespeare, I think, wants us to read on. No pauses at the end of the first three lines. Listen to it again. No longer mourn for me when I am dead, then you shall hear the surly sullen bell give warning to the world that I am fled from this vile world, with vilest worms to dwell. Nay, if you read this line, remember not the hand that writ it, for I love you so that I in your sweet thoughts would be forgot. If thinking on me then should make you woe. Oh, if, I say, you look upon this verse, when I perhaps compounded am with clay, read Hamlet, do not so much as my poor name rehearse, but let your love even with my life decay, lest the wise world should look into your moan and mock you with me after I am gone. What's he saying? Why would the wise world mock the beloved with the speaker after the speaker's death?
Because the person is better off dead.
No.
Because since the world was like vile.
Yeah, from this vile world, because, from some perspectives, the world's a pretty vile place at times. Okay? He's comparing the beloved's status in life with the speaker's. And the speaker's status is not as high as the beloved's. Now, all that doesn't come through in just this one sonnet. You've got to read the other sonnets that lead up to it, where the speaker makes pretty clear the person being addressed is a high status member of society. The speaker is not. We don't know what status the speaker is. Okay? It's one of the reasons why I say don't assume the speaker is Shakespeare. Even if you did, that doesn't help a lot. We know Shakespeare's not a high status member of society. He is possibly, by the time he writes this, he is a gentleman. He has bought a coat of arms for his father, and that gentlemanly status gets passed on to him. But we don't know. We do know he's got connections at court by this time. Okay? 73. That time of year thou mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves, or none, or few do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold. Bare ruined choirs relate the sweet bird sang. So there's one image, right? What's the image? That time of year thou mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves, or none or few, do hang. Fall. Late fall. It's not September fall. It's late November or early December fall. So the trees are almost bare. First image, first quatrain. Second image. In me thou seest, the twilight of such day as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self that seals up all in rest. What's the second image?
Sleep.
Close. Go nighttime, okay? So the first one, it's the end of the year, right? Second one, end of the day.
Endings.
Okay, so far we're talking about endings. Third image. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by.
Fire.
The end of a fire. So we're going from big general down to specific. The end of a year, the end of one rotation of the earth around the sun, the end of a day, one day, 24 hours, the end of a fire. Okay? This thou perceivest. Notice, you know this. You see this. Which makes thy love more strong. To love that well, which thou must leave ere long. Okay? We'll talk about the conclusion in just a minute. So go back to the beginning. The end of the year, when yellow leaves are none or few do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold, the boughs of the trees, bare ruined choirs, where late the sweet bird sang. And you've got a gloss there. Choirs, parts of churches designated for singers. Really? How helpful is that? That is true. You go to any church, almost any church, an old church, don't go to a real modern church, an old architectural church in England, especially a cathedral, and when you get up towards the high altar, what do you have on either side? You have the choirs. This is where the choristers sit and stand. Okay? So the bare ruined choirs has that literal meaning. It also has the meaning of the branches that the birds sit on. But the birds are where? They fled. Okay? The choirs are bare and ruined because the leaves are all gone. A scholar, Amen, last name, like the bare ruined choirs. That describes my brain to a T. Amen, can't remember his last name, wrote a massive book. I mean, I am not kidding. It is this thick on that phrase, bare ruined choirs. Because he takes that as the jumping off point. He's talking about what's called the stripping of the altars in Elizabethan England, beginning in the early 1530s, take that back, mid-1530s. Some of this will be in that introductory lecture I'm going to point the link to. Because of what happened in 1536, I'll do some of it right now, with what's called the dissolution of the monasteries. Henry VIII, I want to say may he rot in hell, but that's not very Christian of me. Henry VIII, when he broke from Rome, dissolved the monasteries. It doesn't mean he poured acid on them and they went, shrink it. It means he broke them up. He kicked out all the monks and the abbots. So the monks became homeless, literally. At the very same time when there were laws against homelessness, it was illegal to be homeless. It was illegal to be poor under Henry VIII. Yeah, go figure, you know. And this is the leader of the English church. Okay? Well, so what do you have happen? So you get the monasteries dissolved, and what happens is Henry and his people immediately beneath him start auctioning off the property so that the people who buy it will then use it to turn the monasteries, because sometimes there are nice buildings, into homes. When I take my Harry Potter students to England, we go to Laycock Abbey. Beautiful old 11th, 12th century abbey that gets dissolved during the monastery, and part of the building gets taken apart. It's because of this primarily that you have so many ruined churches and abbeys in England. It's not because of the Vikings. It's because of Henry VIII. You go to the site of the Battle of Hastings today, okay, where William the Conqueror started construction of a huge abbey within a year of his becoming king of England. That abbey was dismantled during this period. There are a couple of walls and a couple of rooms, and that's all that's left. Okay? The stripping of the altars is part of the Protestant Reformation. Why? Because religious art was taken to be idolatry. So you go into some of these buildings, and you can see, thank God it's not this ugly. you can see where the plaster has been removed from the walls. Most of it, the plaster is totally gone. But in some, there is still the plaster, but the wall has been whitewashed. And you can see underneath the whitewash. It'd be like if I came here with a roller of paint and just did that. Just one roll of paint. What would you still see? You'd see some of this color.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you go to the Trinity Church in Stratford, where Shakespeare grew up, where his father was mayor, where his father was compelled by the law of Parliament in the late 1560s, early 1570s, to cover up all the religious iconography. You can make some of it out. Well, since then, some of the whitewashing has been removed so that you can actually see. When Shakespeare would have gone to church, he gets this panorama of imagery. Why? So they can fall down and worship it? No. Because most of the populace is illiterate. And stories can be told in pictures. And that's how they learn biblical stories. The stripping of the altars refers to the stripping of the walls. It refers to the removing of gold coverings on the gospel book. Well, why would you put a gold covering on a stupid book? Because it's the gospel book. It's the book of the four gospels. In the beginning was the word, and it's that. It's the physical manifestation, you know. Big, massive book, just on stripping of the altars. So, Shakespeare goes on. Next image again. You see the twilight of such day as after sunset fadeth in the west. So what do you see after the sun goes down beyond the horizon? Is it pitch black immediately?
No.
Nope.
There's like a glow.
You still have a glow. There's still some light. Which by and by, that is, tick tock, black night doth take away death's second self, sleep, that seals up all in rest. Sleep is often in the Renaissance used as a metaphor for death, as it is, throughout history, really. Okay? Third image. Look at the language of the fire. How many of you have ever, had an overnight thing with a bonfire, like at a beach? Used to do that every now and then in California. You go, a bunch of friends, build a big old bonfire, usually at a state park where you're not supposed to, but anyway. And what do you have in the morning after the big bonfire? Ash. What else? What's inside the ash? Can you just walk right on that ash, stick your hand in? No. Because underneath the surface layer of ash, there are hot embers. Thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie. What's the ashes of his youth? Well, what was the fire at the beginning? Before you struck a match to it. Big logs. And then when you struck the match and it went boom, and you have a big glowing fire. What happens? It consumes itself. Guess what? That's what we do. We consume ourselves. How? By growing old and eventually dying. Shakespeare didn't know anything about telomeres, the ends of chromosomes. The older we get, the more frayed the telomeres get. Apparently, it's a genetic thing about death. If we could figure out a way to stop the telomeres from fraying, we slow down the cause of death, or we slow down death. Interestingly, one of the astronauts who lived on the International Space Station for over a year, the guy's got a twin brother who's also an astronaut who did not go spend time on the space station. The brother who went to the space station, his telomeres are less frayed than his twin brother's. Kind of indicating being out in space,
Where's you?
just the opposite.
No. Keeps you from wearing it.
Less wear and tear.
Well, I mean, there's no gravity, so.
Well, yeah, there's no gravity, so, Okay? So, consumed with that which it was nourished by. And then the final couplet, that's the kicker. You see all this. Notice the speaker is saying, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You see all this, which makes thy love more strong, which makes your love for me stronger. Why? To love that well. What's the that? Me, which thou must leave ere long. Now, your gloss tells you leave means lose. You're going to lose me soon. Is the speaker literally talking about death? Am I dying? No, not necessarily. Okay, but if it's not death, what is it? You used the word earlier, Savannah.
A pyre.
No.
Sleep.
No. Endings. Something is happening in this relationship. They've got to separate. The friendship has got to come to an end. Well, if you look at 71, and I know we don't have 72 in between, what is 71 suggesting? There's an imbalance in our relationship. That's why the speaker says, if I should die, don't mourn for me. Or when I die, don't mourn for me. Why? Because I don't want people going, well, what's the sign for? Oh, well, so-and-so has died. Really? You? That person? Just don't. And if this is going to bring tears or moans to you, don't read it. Okay? Again, it's not necessarily a literal death. It's when I am dead to you. Okay? Go from there, big jump, to 106. See, is that one in here? Oh, man. I would love to do 93. We might have to come back and do 93. We really need to do 93. 106. Time is 10:11. Oh, we got plenty of time. When in the chronicle of wasted time I see descriptions of the fairest whites, in beauty making beautiful old rhyme, in praise of ladies dead and lovely knights. What's he talking about? What did we just finish reading? Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. In praise of lovely knights and ladies dead. Chivalry. He's talking about great medieval romances. Okay? Then, so, when in, ... then. How does Canterbury Tales begin? When that April with the sure sotas, then longing folk to go on pilgrimages. When, then. So, when, in the Chronicle of Wasted Time, I see descriptions of the fairest whites, and beauty making beautiful old rhyme in praise of ladies dead and lovely knights. Then, in the blazon of sweet beauty's best, of hand, of foot, of lip, of eye, of brow, I see their antic pen would have expressed even such a beauty as you master now. We'll talk about the blazon in a minute. So all their praises are but prophesies of this our time, all you prefiguring. And for they looked, but with divining eyes, they had not skill enough, your worth to sing. Okay, so let's leave the couplet alone for a moment. The Chronicle of Wasted Time, he's talking about old books. Why is it wasted time? You've got a gloss suggesting previous, a useless gloss. Why else is it wasted other than what your gloss tells you? Because they weren't alive now. Why is it important to be alive now? Because the speaker says, you live. You, not me, you live. Okay? And what is the purpose of the you, or what's the function of the you? Then in the blazon of sweet beauty's best. Your gloss tells you a description catalog, should be descriptive, it's bad grammar, of a beloved's body. What's not always, all the time, body? Sometimes it's just the face. Usually it's just the face. So the descriptive catalog talks about hair, forehead, eyes, nose, cheeks, lips, mouth, etc. Sometimes it starts with the head, moves to the toes. Okay? I don't really know what you're going to praise about the beloved's toes, but you know, best toes in the world, I guess, if you have a toe fetish or something. Anyways, of hand, foot, lip, eyebrow, I see their antique pin, their old pin. Okay, we pronounce that word how? Antique. But in Shakespeare's day, it meant both antique and antic, which we don't use this word very much today. We only use it if it has two letters in front of it, usually. Frantic. Kind of losing your mind a little bit, jumbled up, if you want. Frustrated, kind of. Okay? I see their antique pen would have expressed even such a beauty as you master now. Their pen would have expressed your beauty. Why? So all their praises are but prophecies. So when we get the description in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight of Sir Bertilac de Haut-Desert's wife, she's gorgeous, right? She's just a prophecy of you. She is a foretelling of you. She might be good looking, but she's nothing compared to you. And because they look but with divining eyes, prophetic eyes. They had not skill enough your worth to sing. Why? Because they didn't see you with my two eyes. They didn't actually see you. Okay? What else is he getting at? He's getting at biblical interpretation, believe it or not. The Old Testament. You have characters. Joshua, David, Moses, Samson. What are they all? Deborah in the book of Judges. In fact, all of the judges in the book of Judges. Gideon, etc. One or two of you, I can't remember, somebody's emailed me, is going to write about a paper on Beowulf as a type of Christ. Well, there's the word. They are types. They're biblical kind of precursors of Christ. Notice, they're not Christ come early. Why not? Well, David's got that little problem called Bathsheba. Jesus doesn't. Unless you're into Nicholas Kazantzakis, can't remember his last name perfectly. The Last Temptation of Christ, where Jesus and Mary Magdalene have their little thing going on. That's kind of the Bathsheba thing. Okay? Samson's got his little Delilah problem. Okay? Moses has got a variety of issues. Doesn't obey God, etc. Gideon's got a variety of issues. They've all got what? One little problem or more that makes them types, not the real thing. They point to, they don't stand instead of. Okay? He says, all these beautiful women described before, they point to. For we which now behold these present days have eyes to wonder, but lack tongues to praise. She is what to the speaker? It's pretty clear he's speaking about a she, and the speaker is a he. She's like looking at the sun. What happens if you look at the sun too long?
You go blind.
You go blind. It hurts. Well, what's the analogy? The going blind and hurting is what? I can't put that in words. She is so beautiful to behold, speech fails him. He just kind of, okay. 1:16. Now, growing up in California in the 60s and 70s, this was often used as part of a wedding vow. I mean, because this was California and it was the heyday of the hippies. This was often used as wedding vows, which I think, if you understand the poem correctly, which I will assert is my reading of it. I could be wrong, but I think my reading is right. I mean, who doesn't think what they believe is right? Because if you think what you believe is wrong, then you're a fool. Anyways, let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Notice that's where it stops. Well, what is the stopping? That's an impediment. It keeps you from going forward. And notice what kind of stop is it? It's a semicolon. That's a pretty hard stop. The only harder stop you get than that in oratory is a period or a colon. Period and colon mean take a long pause, go heat up a pot of coffee, come back. Comma means go grab your cup because it's already full and come back. Comma is a short pause. Semicolon is a longer pause. Okay? Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Period. Hard stop, long pause. Oh no. It is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. Okay? First quatrain. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Now, in the Renaissance, Shakespeare's day, anybody know what had to happen in church before you could get married? We still see this in some Protestant ceremonies today. I don't think it's done in the Catholic Church. Only today it's simply done at the actual wedding ceremony. In Shakespeare's day, it was done, I believe it's either 3 consecutive weeks before the wedding or one Sunday each 3 consecutive months. Pretty sure it's 3 consecutive weeks. It's the reading of what are called the banns. The banns. William and Anne are betrothed. And it is their intention to enter into holy matrimony on date such and such. If there is anyone present who knows any reason why they should not be married, let him speak now, how's the end go? Or forever hold your peace. See, that part is often done in Protestant weddings today, right now, in the actual wedding. Well, that would be pretty low if someone would go, yeah, I know a reason, why he shouldn't get married. I mean, that's essentially what happens at the beginning of Midsummer Night's Dream, right? Mm-hmm. Aegeus wants his daughter Hermia to marry Demetrius. Lysander says, but I love her. She says, but I love Lysander. Well, Lysander throws in a pretty good wrinkle there, which is, he betrothed Helena. He did woo her. Made love to her, he says. Doesn't have the modern connotation. And the king, or the duke, Theseus is like, yeah, I heard about that. And Demetrius, you and I are going to go have a talk. Okay? So, that's the reading of the banns. 3 consecutive Sundays. Didn't happen with Shakespeare's marriage. Why? Because Anne's already 3 months pregnant. And they don't get married in Warwickshire. They go to a neighboring shire to get married. Okay? So let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Don't let me stop What kind of marriage is this, however? It's a mind marriage. It's a marriage of souls. What kind of souls? True. What does the word true mean? It doesn't mean not false. It means upright. It means straight. It means right. What right literally means. A bicycle tire that is true is a bicycle tire that exists top of the tire to the bottom of the tire, one plane. If it's out of true, if some of the spokes aren't tight or are broken, the tire goes like that. And the more and more out of true it becomes, it can go like that. So let me not to the marriage of true minds. So they're facing each other. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. This is the part that people often have a hard time with. So, back up a little bit. Remover, line 14, footnote 14, or bends with the remover to remove. Remover, one who changes, e.g., ceases to love. Okay, so, I need another marker. I need two markers, actually. I need a red one and a blue. So, we have three people being referred to. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. We have A. It's one of the true minds. We have B. That's another one of the true minds. And then kind of floating around, there's a C. So, love is not love when it which alters when it alteration finds. What does that mean? Which alters when it alteration finds. Love, A, is not love, which alters, changes, if it finds alteration. Where's the finding the alteration? Over here in B. What's the speaker saying? If B comes to A and says, I'm done. I don't love you anymore. Or if B comes to A and says, yeah, but I'm at C. And I love C now. Here's the hard part. This, what A felt for B, what A had for C, let me rephrase that. Don't use the word felt, because it means feelings. And feelings are stupid. Okay? This wasn't love. If, when this turns to here, this says, oh yeah? Well, F you. I no longer love you either. That was never love to begin with. So then put that another way. What is love then?
You love somebody even when they maybe don't return it.
Unfaulting, unconditional. It doesn't depend on this. Okay? Or bends with the remover to remove. Well, how's the remover bending? Because the remover is going down here, and you could say, this is the cause of the removing. Love is not love. If it varies when this goes, okay, so now let's use real world terms. Two people are married to each other. Two people are married. Person B in the relationship falls in love with somebody else, leaves, divorces. Shakespeare, I think, is saying, A, if it was True love doesn't stop loving person B, even though person B no longer loves person A. How radical is that? Because our society says, what? Screw them. Easy divorce. Our society says, marriage is for what? For when you're happy. For when you're pleased. And when it gets a little bit hard, there's the door. Just leave. Oh, no. Oh, no. Replace the oh. Hell no. I think Shakespeare is saying. Keep in mind, when Shakespeare's probably writing these sonnets, where is he and where is Anne?
He's in London.
With the kids. Anne is in Stratford with the kids, and Shakespeare's off in London. Might give a little biographical information if one were to read these poems biographically, which I don't think you should. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark. What's he talking about? What's the ever-fixed mark? What is the star to every wandering bark? The North Star. Why is that the star?
Because it's constant.
Because if you're in the northern hemisphere, that's your constant. That's your, what Jean-Paul Sartre called, your infinite reference point. Even though he didn't believe in an infinite reference point. That's the thing that if you can see the North Star, you can what? If you have a sextant, you can figure out where you are anywhere in the ocean. As long as you're on the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, what's your constant? What is your star? It's the Southern Cross. I think it is the Southern Cross never actually leaves the night sky. Okay? It is an ever-fixed mark that does what? Looks on tempests and is never shaken. Well, what kind of tempests? You cheated on me. You lost all my money. You blah, 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 blah. Those kinds of tempests. Why is it never shaken? Because it's not in the middle of the tempests. Oh. How do you mean it's not in the middle of the tempests? They are in the middle. What's love?
It's the constant.
What's love? Yeah, you're right. It is the constant. What else is it? What is it not? The word I used a minute ago.
Oh, it's not.
It's not feelings.
It's more of like a decision that you make.
Bingo! It's a decision. It's a commitment. It's a hell or high water. This is what? What? The marriage of true minds. This is what we agree to, no matter. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown. That is, the star is unknown. So what's he mean? I think he's saying, if I am correct in this interpretation, and it's not feelings, but it's that decision, it's that commitment, whose commitment's unknown, although his height be taken. That is, you're standing there at the altar or in front of the justice of the peace or out in front of the woods, and your best friend's doing the whatever, or just a common law marriage even. And what's the worth? If it's this commitment idea, you don't know the day you get married. I've been married for almost 33 years. Everything you're going to endure. Because what would most people do if they knew exactly what they were going to endure? Hell no. Okay? Love's not, I love this passage. Love's not time's fool. Time's, what does he mean by fool? Plaything. Love isn't something that time just merely plays around with. Well, he then expands that. What's he mean by time's fool, time's plaything? Though, and this is how you know it's a woman he's speaking about, rosy lips and cheeks within his, Who's the his? It's not person A's, it's times. Within his bending sickle's compass come. Okay? Because none of us live how? Totally isolated. And even if we're married, we don't live totally isolated, right? I mean, unless you go off to the mountains of Idaho and you build a cabin and you become, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and we live in one way or another in some form of community or in some form of relationship. We have people we see every day that are not our quote-unquote love. We have people at work. We have people, you fill up for gas, you go to the group, all these. Well, guess what? Every interaction with another person is what? Time's sickle. And what does time do? It moves its sickle. It creates. So let's say, here's my life. And I've got to stop on the way home today. Got to stop a variety of places and get food and some groceries. And so every time I do, this is what's going to happen. My life is going to intersect with somebody else's. Well, that somebody else might have rosy lips and cheeks. And Shakespeare is saying, not a plaything. Okay? Because those playthings do come into that bending sickles. Time brings me into contact with others. Love alters not. With his times, brief hours and weeks. It doesn't change, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. And therefore, what God has joined together, how's the end go? Let no man rend. What does rend mean? Rip apart, asunder. Conclusion. If this be error, if I'm wrong, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever looved. That's how it would have been pronounced in Shakespeare's day, looved. Notice the genius of the final line. If you can prove this to me, then I never what? Madison? I never wrote. And yet, we're reading what he wrote. Therefore, it's a false syllogism, which Shakespeare's famous for. Even though the syllogism logically is false, he wants us, I think, to accept the truth of the statement. Okay? Now, good for a wedding vow? Yeah, maybe, but I would say maybe if it's not 1970s and you're all drugged up on, marijuana and everything, because you're going, hey, baby, what? I mean, this is talking about what? Commitment. Well, we know from when Shakespeare married to when he died, he and Anne Hathaway stayed married. We know of other poets same time who didn't. They got divorced. We know of other poets later who wanted to get divorced. John Milton, author of Paradise Lost, author of Areopagitica, also author of The Doctrine and Discipline of Divorce. He wanted to get rid of his wife, but he couldn't. Okay? Go from 116, see, we should have time, 130, and then we'll back up a little bit. Okay? This sonnet, which Sting ripped off for the title of an album and song, bear in mind, Sting does have an MA in English literature. He was a high school teacher before he became Sting. Imagine that. Having Sting as your high school English teacher. It'd be like having Bono come in, and teach you on writing lyrics. 130. This is where Shakespeare takes that idea of the blazon, the catalog of beauty, and flips it on its head. He reverses it. Okay? It's still a catalog, but it's a catalog of negative beauty. And he's doing it for a very interesting reason. Now, this is one of the sonnets addressed to the Dark Lady, or about the Dark Lady. The first one is 127, which, yeah, let's do 127 real briefly first. In the old age, and your gloss tells you earlier times, well, duh. I hate glosses in most English textbooks because they're utterly useless. Black was not counted fair, beautiful. In the old age, black wasn't seen as being beautiful. Or if it were, it bore not beauty's name. That is, nobody was willing to admit it. But now is black beauty's successive legitimate heir, and beauty slandered with a bastard shame. Footnote, the former fair conception of beauty has been discredited as illegitimate and false. Well, what was the former conception of beauty? What was Queen Elizabeth's idea of beauty?
Pale.
How pale?
Very, very pale. She painted
This pale. If you've ever seen a couple of portraits of her, she looks like she literally has white powdered sugar on her face. And if you ever see any pictures of, if you ever read it, because there aren't any pictures of her smiling. Her teeth were black. Why? She had a sugar habit, man. I mean, she, like meth. I mean, she just ate sugar constantly, and it wired her teeth away. Okay? So, beauty slandered with a bastard shame back in the old days. For since each hand hath put on nature's power, what? Everyone has assumed the power to mimic natural beauty through cosmetics. See, Maybelline and Max Factor, they're not modern. He's talking about the Renaissance version of Maybelline and Max Factor and such. Fairing the foul with art's false borrowed face. Shakespeare wouldn't use this, well, maybe he would. He probably would in one of his plays. You put lipstick on a pig and you still have a pig, right? Okay? That's what he's getting at. Fearing the foul. Someone born unbeautiful can be made to appear beautiful. Sweet beauty hath no name, no holy power. Lost my place. But is profaned if not lives in disgrace. Therefore, because of this, my mistress's eyes are raven black. Well, what typically are a beauty's eyes described as in literature? Light. Blue. Blue, blonde, you know, the whole Nordic thing, okay? Her eyes so suited, that is, her eyes are black and it's fitting, so suited, so dressed in black. Why? They mourners seem, at such who not born fair, no beauty lack. They are mourners for those who don't have her beauty, meaning those who aren't dark of skin with dark eyes. Slandering creation with a false esteem. That's those who aren't born beautiful and who make themselves beautiful with cosmetics. That's the false esteem, the false face. Yet so they mourn, that is my beauty's eyes. Why? Becoming of their woe, fitting of their woe, that every tongue says beauty should look so. Okay, so now, ever read that one? Look at 130. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. They don't dazzle. Coral is far more red than her lips red. I'm going to read through the whole thing and then we'll go back. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun? If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes, my absolute favorite couplet from Shakespeare, is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks? I just love that line. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. So let's stop there. Eyes are nothing like the sun, that's pretty clear. Okay. Coral is far more red than lips red. What would Shakespeare's experience of coral be? Did he strap on a scuba tank and hit the Bahamas? No. So where would he have seen coral? Did he ever leave England? As far as we know,
No.
historically. No, he didn't. He lived in London. And sometimes in Stratford. So, what would coral look like by the time it gets to Shakespeare?
Dry up.
Pretty white, pretty pale. In the water, living, it's red. Take it out, and it loses its color. So, coral is far more red than her lips red. So, is he talking about coral in the ocean? Or coral that he's seen? So, if coral that he's seen is pale, and it's far more red than her lips are red, ew, right? I mean, she looks like what?
She looks
Corpse. Her lips look like a corpse's lips. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. What is dun colored? Kimberly's sweatshirt almost. Dirty dishwater. Even better. Dirty laundry water. Brownish. Ugh. If snow be white, and white is beautiful, her breasts, they ain't white. You can just leave it there. It's kind of like the opposite. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her. She's got kinky hair. What image are we getting? This is not your waspish Northern European, right? I have seen roses damasked red and white. You know, multicolored roses. No such roses see I in her cheeks. That is even, even if she gets embarrassed or whatever, and she flush, you don't notice the flushing, you don't notice the embarrassment. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. Think of the foulest smell you've ever smelled, and that's her breath. I love to hear her speak, and yet what does she sound like? The nanny, Fran Drescher.
Yes.
Oh, William, I love you so much. Music has a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. Go. Your gloss tells you walk. Why is he talking about goddesses? Because all the other sonneteers are describing their lovers, their beloveds, as goddesses. Philip Sidney, Astrophil and Stella. Astrophil, Astro, Star, Phil, lover, and Stella. It's where, by the way, it's why Tennessee Williams names the character in Streetcar Named Desire. Here's another one of those brain farts. Stella! Okay. His mistress, when she walks, she does what? Treads on the ground. Shakespeare, I think, is using that language because he's portraying the speaker's lover as a particular kind of woman. A streetwalker. She's a whore. A prostitute. Okay? By saying, my mistress walks on the ground. She's not like you guys. He's also saying one other thing. My mistress, she's real. She's not some goddess. How do we know? And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare. My love, meaning both my beloved and what I think of her, let's use the word, feel for her, as any she belied with false compare. As any she belied with false, he's talking about all the other sonneteers' lovers who compare their lovers to goddesses. My love, she's real. I don't have to curl up with a good book and cold winter nights to warm me up. Why? Because she's right here next to me. Okay, so we've done. All right, let's do 135 since we're kind of on a roll. And we haven't done any of Shakespeare's dirty stuff yet, so let's do the quintessential dirty Shakespeare. Now, in order to understand this, you got to read the second footnote. The word will in Shakespeare's day. In Shakespeare's time, the word could also refer to sexual desire and even to the genitals. So, whoever hath her wish, thou hast thy will. Okay. Now, he's suggesting that her wish is me, Will Shakespeare, as well as the other wills. Okay. And will to boot, that is, and will kind of as an extra in addition. And will in overplus, superabundance. Playing upon the Renaissance notion and later that women's wills, both genitalia and sexual desire, can never be satisfied by any will, any man's individual genitalia or any individual man, whether that man is named Will or not. More than enough am I that vex thee still. In other words, hey baby, once you've seen this will, you won't want any others. To thy sweet will, making addition thus. Now that's pretty clear. Notice the will there. Wilt thou, whose will is large and spacious, not once vouchsafe to hide my will in thine. Shall will in others, other men, shall will in others seem right gracious, and in my will no fair acceptance shine? What's he implying? Well, you accept Frank's will, and John's will, and George's will. Why not Will's will? So let me use an image. The sea, all water, yet receives rain still. You know, rain falls on the ocean as well as on the land. And in abundance addeth to his store. You're like the sea, and we're all like the rain. Why won't you let me rain on you? So thou, being rich in will, kind of means not only the size of her will, but she's had a lot of wills. Add to thy will one will of mine to make thy large will more. Let no unkind, no fair beseechers kill. Think all but one, and me in that one will. That's once you've had me, you won't need any other men. Okay? Look back. Okay, I said I wanted to go back for a second. Let's go back to... Christian, did you have a comment? Okay, I thought I saw your hand up. Go to number 18. We've got about 14 minutes. Page 887. This poem is usually anthologized in, the 100 greatest love poems. It's not a love poem. Oh, it's not a romantic love poem. It is a love poem, but it's a platonic love poem. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. So, should I compare you to a summer's day? What's the next line say? Well, you're more lovely and more temperate than a summer's day. Why? Because in May, rough winds shake the darling buds. Thunderstorms come, they knock the little flowers off. In summer's lease, the time of summer, hath all too short a date. It ends too soon. Not in Murfreesboro, but in London it does. Okay? Just about every time I've been in London, I don't know, the past 4 or 5 times, they've had abnormally cool weather. I mean, I've loved it. 60s and 70s. Londoners love it when it gets up into the 80s for a day or two. Because they then nearly strip naked and they go find whatever patch of grass they can. And they go, offer themselves to the sun god. Okay? Some of them really need to cover up more. Big, fat Arab men in Speedos, it's just, you don't want to go there. Anyways, sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines. That's summer here, right? And often is his gold complexion dimmed. clouds. And every fair from fair sometime declines by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. Every fair, every beauty, every beautiful person does what? From fair, sometime doesn't mean sometimes. It means tick-tock. You start off beautiful, or you're born, you grow up, you get beautiful, you get handsome, and then what happens? Tick-tock. You age, and the beauty becomes a little bit less beautiful, and a little bit less beautiful, and look at Mel Gibson now compared to Mel Gibson when he was like 26. Okay, look at Gerard Butler now. Hard life, man, in the last 8 years compared to Gerard Butler 8 or 9 years ago. Of course, my wife would say, yeah, but look at Sean Connery now. 90 years old. I mean, the guy ought to be in the grave, and he's still, for a lot of women. So, by chance, we are noticed untrimmed. By chance or nature's changing course. What does it mean to be untrimmed? Well, take the un off. How do we use the word trimmed? Not bangs.
Skinny.
No. We use trim to mean thin. What do we trim other than hedges and stuff? Think holidays. Thanksgiving, turkey, and all the trimmings. Yeah. And you trim a Christmas tree. Doesn't mean you go up and, like a little bonsai, and you're decorating, adornment. So, by chance or by nature's changing course, untrimmed. Nature builds us up, and then what does it start to do? Takes us apart. Okay? Face starts to get saggy. Beard turns white, hair turns white, body's hanging all over the place. It's just not a pretty sight. But thy eternal summer shall not fade. What? Wait, why? How come this person gets an eternal summer? Nor lose possession of that fair thou owns, that beauty that you now own. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. Here's why. When in eternal lines to time thou growst. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this what? This poem gives life to thee. We're still reading about this golden-haired youth 400 years later. And he is, like the images on Keats's Ode on a Grecian Urn, like that young swain chasing the beautiful maiden. And they're both beautiful for all eternity. Why? Because they're frozen in time. This person has been frozen in time, like a photograph. We just don't have the photograph. We have the description that tells us all this. Okay? Let's see, we can do maybe one more. Let's look at, how about, 93. 7 minutes. Page 891. Something has happened in the relationship. Now, we started to see around 71. They're having to distance themselves. Cooling off period, if you want. So 93. So shall I live, supposing thou art true, like a deceived husband. What does that opening tell us? So shall I live, supposing thou art true, like a not yet deceived husband. If the husband is deceived, then what's going on?
She's cheating on him.
She's cheating on him. But I'm going to assume that you are true. So love's face may still seem love to me, though altered new. When you look at me, I will see nothing but love. Though your face is newly altered, doesn't mean she's been to a plastic surgeon. Doesn't mean she's found a new makeup supplier. It means she suddenly has a new twinkle in her eye. There is a new reason for that spot of blush on her cheek. Thy looks with me, thy heart in other place. You're looking at me and smiling, but I know why you're smiling. You're thinking of somebody. You're thinking of C. Aren't you? For there can live no hatred in thine eye. Therefore, in that I cannot know thy change. Look at your gloss. From your eye, I cannot know that your heart has changed. You look at me the same. Your eyes don't betray you. But notice the speaker is saying, but I know what's in your heart. I know you're cheating on me. In many's looks, the false heart's history is writ in moods and frowns, in wrinkles strange. How can you often tell when two lovers are having a bit of a spat?
They both seem kind of tired.
They both seem kind of tired.
Distance.
It's all written there in the face, right? I mean, you see, there's not the brightness, there's not the joy, there might be a frown. There might be a knife in the back, But heaven in thy creation did decree that in thy face sweet love should ever dwell. It's like, the speaker has it bad. He knows she's cheating on her and he just can't. Yeah, he can't see anything false. If it's a she, it might be the golden-haired youth. And it might be the friendship has been destroyed. How? New friend. Well, guess what? That's exactly what happens in the course of the sonnets. The speaker, gold-haired youth, who enters the scene? Dark lady. How does she enter the scene? The speaker introduces golden-haired youth to dark lady. Well, what's dark lady to the speaker? Lover. She becomes lover to the golden-haired youth. How colloquially, how screwed is he? She takes away his best friend, he takes away her lover, his lover. Okay? So, whatever thy thoughts or thy heart's workings be, thy look should nothing fence but sweetness tell. Final couplet. How like Eve's apple doth thy beauty grow? Do we even need the final line? If it's like Eve's apple, then what is it? Run, flee, as fast as you can. Because you take a bite of that apple, and what does it do? You die right then, right there. If thy sweet virtue answer not thy show. Thy sweet virtue, where is that? It's inside. Where's the show of thy sweet virtue? Hi, honey. Yes, I love you still. No, forget about the man behind the curtain. Okay. All right, we'll stop there. We don't have time to do any others. So, for next time,